Hello YouTube, welcome to the first of a two-part series where I'm going to be walking you through step-by-step everything you need to know to get started with Poshmark. This first video is for anyone who is just getting started with buying on Poshmark. Whether you just downloaded the app, maybe you've used some other reselling apps, or maybe you're entirely new to used clothing and e-commerce, I'm going to be walking you through everything you need to know to get started with Poshmark buying. In the second video in this series, I will be going through everything you need to know to get started with selling on Poshmark, which is the main focus of the videos that we make on this channel. So full step-by-step, everything should be the same whether you're selling on Poshmark Canada, Poshmark US, Poshmark Australia, Poshmark UK, or any other future Poshmark regions that become available. Okay, here we go. So, welcome back to the Every Closet. My name is Ethan, and along with my partner Stephanie, we are two full-time resellers of used clothing on Poshmark and eBay. We sell on Poshmark US and Poshmark Canada and on eBay.com. Over the last few years, we've been doing this full-time. We feel like we've accumulated enough experience on the buying and selling side to give you a full step-by-step guide. I'll pop an agenda with the time codes for this video up on the screen over here, so maybe you're just stuck on one or two areas, so you can just skip around in this video as need be, and otherwise, let's get into it. So first up, what is Poshmark? Poshmark is an online marketplace where users can buy and sell both new and used goods, clothes, shoes, accessories, pet items, electronics. They're always expanding these categories, and in the last couple of years that we've been selling on Poshmark, they have expanded into those electronics and pet goods. But of course, Poshmark's bread and butter is clothing, shoes, accessories. So that's what is Poshmark. Now, why should you consider buying on Poshmark? So there are a lot of reselling apps out there, whether it be Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, eBay, Depop, Mercari, all of these different apps to choose from. You might be wondering, is it something that is worthwhile? And I'm biased as a full-time seller on the platform, but I absolutely think yes. In my opinion, most important reason why you might want to start buying on Poshmark is you can save a ton of money. So whether you're buying unworn items that still have their original tags attached to them from the original retailer, or you're buying items that have seen a lot of use but are still perfectly good, you can save a ton of money on those items on Poshmark. The second reason that you should buy on Poshmark is you can find really specific things on Poshmark if you are looking for something really specific. If you're just looking to browse or you don't know exactly what you're looking for, Poshmark's search filters make it really easy to find something that works for you. But in terms of looking for something very specific, there are so many items posted on Poshmark that whether you're looking for a specific band's t-shirt from a tour they did 20 years ago, you can find that on Poshmark most likely. If you did, say, the Spartan race or Tough Mudder 6 years ago and you really liked your finisher shirt for that race and it's just worn out, odds are you can find one from that specific year on Poshmark. Like, that is the level of specificity that you can probably find. Say there's a specific pair of jeans that have been discontinued, you can probably find a perfectly good new or used pair of those jeans on Poshmark. Reason number 3 that you should buy on Poshmark is it is great for the environment. You're keeping clothing out of landfills. And second, did you know that a huge portion of the world's fresh water is used just for dyeing clothing? That is crazy. So if you can buy from a secondhand source, even if they're selling a new with tags item, that's still making sure that you're not buying directly from a brand that is then going to replenish its stock, and in the process of doing so is going to use more fresh water, dye more clothes. It's a great way to do a little bit to help Mother Earth. Thanks, Mother Earth. Awkward transition. Another reason that you should buy on Poshmark is I know a lot of people have tried eBay in the past, and as someone who sells and has bought on both platforms, I just want to say Poshmark is like eBay, but much more user-friendly. It's just a much cleaner buying experience, hands down way better. So if you have tried reselling apps in the past, and the most popular is eBay, so odds are if you've used reselling apps, it's probably been eBay. Trust me, Poshmark is like the much, much better version of eBay. And I say that as someone who sells on eBay. It's the biggest used marketplace in the world, so it still makes up a good portion of our sales, and it is growing. eBay is not as user-friendly. One of the best reasons to buy on Poshmark is their Posh Protect policy. So this policy helps protect both buyers and sellers on the platform. What this means for you as a buyer is if your order goes wrong for some reason, Poshmark is there to help. You don't have to worry about paying for return postage. Poshmark will send you a return label if an item arrives damaged or not as it was described. Then you just open a case. Poshmark sends you the return postage and you get to return it for a full refund. You don't have to worry about dealing with maybe an unresponsive seller. You don't have to worry about getting shipped the wrong item. If your order doesn't arrive in the way that the seller described it, you can get a hassle-free refund. And that's fantastic. And an unfortunate reality today is there are a lot of things like porch pirates, people who will steal packages off of doorsteps or from mailboxes if they're left unsecured. And we have had cases in the past as sellers on Poshmark where the shipping carrier, whether it's USPS, Canada Post, like that item is tracked and arrives and shows that it was delivered, but the buyer searches and can't find it. And Poshmark has reimbursed the buyer and paid out the seller's earnings in that instance. Now, of course, be considerate of Poshmark in this. Don't use that to your advantage to like Poshmark is probably going to ban people who experience this several times. I'm not sure. But it is really nice to know, both as a buyer and a seller, that if something goes wrong outside of either party's control and it's the fault of the shipping carrier, buyer and seller are both still taken care of by Poshmark, and that's awesome. As we'll get into, some of the items that you can buy on Poshmark range from as little as $5 to in the several thousands of dollars if you're buying something that is a luxury item. So Poshmark's Posh Protect policy, say that 5 times fast, is a huge benefit to buyers and sellers because that peace of mind is something that's really nice when you compare it to something like an eBay. So now we know what Poshmark is and why you might want to buy on Poshmark. Let's talk about getting started. When you first sign up for Poshmark, Poshmark will ask if you have a referral code. Make sure you use someone's referral code because everyone likes free money, right? If you don't like free money, that's strange. Why are you like this? But if you do like free money, use someone's referral code. I'll pop ours on screen here if you would like to support the channel. But basically, this credit is something that is automatically applied to your first purchase before Poshmark charges you on your credit card or PayPal or however you are paying. You get $10 US or Australian if you are selling or buying on those platforms, or you get a 15 Canadian dollar credit if you are buying or selling on Poshmark Canada. So also when you first sign up for Poshmark, their search is really nice because it will automatically filter by your specific sizes and various items if you put your size in at the start. If you're going to be buying and selling for multiple people, it might be easier if you don't put in your size details here, and then it'll just filter by all sizes in whatever search terms and filters you put in. But if you're primarily shopping for yourself, then it can be really helpful to just put in your size when you first sign up, and you can always change that later. When we get into navigating through the Poshmark app, I'll show you where you can add that if you forgot to do it when you first signed up. So this next section is for buyers looking to figure out how to navigate through the Poshmark app, whether you're looking for something really specific or maybe you are just looking for something more general. This is going to help you. So when you first load the Poshmark app, the first thing you're going to see on screen here is your homepage or just general feed. This is where Poshmark shows you the things that they think based on your browsing history and browsing preferences. This is what they think that you might be interested in terms of items, brands, those kinds of things. And you can see along the bottom edge of the app that we're over on the left side currently. So just to the right of that home feed, you can see the button search. So we'll click on that. So on this search page, you'll see in the top left corner, it says all. If you are just looking for something in a specific category, whether it be men's, women's, kids, electronics, home goods, all of those kinds of things. For right now, I'm just going to say all. And let's say that you're just looking for a Lululemon legging in size 8, for instance. So you type in Lululemon, you'll see It comes up here at the very top as a brand that you can click on, so that'll automatically show you everything that has been listed. For Lululemon, you can click in the top right corner here to filter, and you'll see here what filters Poshmark has automatically applied for us. So Steph had put in her size on our Poshmark Canada app, so it's automatically filtering by my size. I will show you in just a minute how you can update or change size if you do want it to apply this filter. But for right now, let's just say all sizes and then go back into the filter. And you can see here it's sorting by just shared. So Poshmark has a share-based algorithm where sellers will share their listings, and anything that has been shared more recently will automatically show up at the top. If you want to see the things that have been listed most recently, you can just change just shared to just in. You can also filter by prices or whether something just had its price dropped recently, all of those things. Now, in our example, we are looking for women's leggings in size 8, so we can just go onto the categories, women, pants, leggings, and click done. So now this is showing us all of the Lululemon leggings, so we can click on the filter here and you can see it's actually filtered out anything that isn't corresponding to what we have set as my size. Stephanie does use the app to buy her own clothes as well sometimes, so she put in her sizes under my size. If you forgot to put in your sizes for filtering to my size and you would like to, you can do that by just clicking on size, my size, and you can say edit my size, and it'll ask you for your size in various different categories, from shoes to sweaters to shirts, pants, all of that stuff. In this case, we do not want to filter by my size because we're looking for specifically size 8 leggings. So we can say all sizes and done. And then in here, you just click on US size 8. If I didn't switch from my size to all size, then I could say my size and 8, and then it's going to be filtering for both. So that's not really the most helpful if you are looking for a specific size. So I would just go all size and then 8. And so there you go. It's showing us all of the Lululemon leggings in size 8. You can, of course, go back into filters and get really much more specific in what you're looking for, whether it be by color, whether it be by price range, whether it be if the seller has indicated in the listing that they are doing free or discounted shipping. I will note, I don't think it is worthwhile to filter on the shipping discount specifically, because as we'll get into later, you can always send an offer to a seller, or the seller can send you an offer with discounted shipping. Not a lot of sellers will go through and put discounted shipping in their listings specifically, so you may be hurting yourself in finding what you're actually looking for if you do filter by shipping discount. You can also filter by condition of the item, so clicking on that, you can see all conditions means it is going to show you both new with tags, never worn items, and it will show you all of the used items, which make up most of the items. If you just want something that is specifically new with tags from the original retailer, you can check new with tags, and there you go. So that's how you would go through search and filtering. Let's go back and just click on that general search tab, or shop with the magnifying glass, I should say. And in here, you can see some of the items that you've liked, some of your favorite brands, things that you've viewed recently, Posh shows that are going on. Posh shows are live selling shows where you join the lobby as a seller, holds up the item, tells you a bit about it, and you can buy from them there. So that's the shop/search page. I do also want to just give a quick note about Posh parties here. So the app will notify you when a Posh party is starting, and it'll tell you quickly what that Posh party is. So what the Posh party is changes throughout the day, and from day to day. Some days the 4 o'clock party might be the luxury party or the pet party, anything for pet goods, or the home good party, those kinds of things. The only party that doesn't change its type is, for us on the West Coast, it's the 7 p.m. Posh party. It starts at the same time for everyone, so if you're on the East Coast, that would be the 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. Posh party. That party specifically is for everything in a person's Poshmark closet or store. All of that can be shared to the Posh party, and people can buy any category of good at that time. Otherwise, when a Posh party starts, it'll tell you, like, this is the luxury party starting now. And so that luxury party is going to have brands like Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Valentino, Versace, all of those really, really expensive brands. That's If you're looking for luxury goods, that's the party you want to be shopping in all likelihood. Sellers who are active on the app may be sharing those specific items to that Posh party. But of course, those items are listed on Poshmark before the Posh party begins, so you can always search for and find those items. So that's search and Posh parties. Another way that you might find items to buy on Poshmark is if there's a specific Posher that you want to shop from their store, or as we call it on Poshmark, a Poshmark closet, then you can navigate to that Posher's store and then look through all of the items that they have available. The advantage to doing this is then you can bundle multiple items when you purchase from a Poshmark seller, and if you do that, you only pay the shipping once. So that can be really handy if, say, a seller has like 2 or 3 of the same kind of shirt or multiple things in your size, then usually that seller is more willing to give you a discount if you're buying multiple items, or a bigger discount, and then you only pay for the shipping once. So that can be really nice as well. I'll just show you really quickly on the app how you would go about finding a specific Posher. So if you do want to find a specific Posher, you just go to the leftmost tab on feed, and next to the search at the top, you click on the little person icon, and then you can see it says find people at the top. Click on that and you type in their username. So if you want to find our Canadian closet, for instance, you would type in the Every Closet and click search. And there you can see comes up Steph C at the Every Closet. And so you can click on that. And then this is our entire store on Poshmark Canada. So you can filter again, just like we did in the general search for all of the items on Poshmark. Say you just want to shop from our closet because you want to get a bundled shipping discount, and you also maybe want a bigger percentage discount. Maybe you're looking for large dresses, for instance, and maybe you want to buy a couple. You can go women's dresses. You can sub-filter more if you would like to by category. Click done, and then say you're a size 4. So you can type in 4, and this will show you all of the size 4 dresses that we have available in our Poshmark store. So maybe you see a couple there that you like the looks of. You can click on the listings and investigate them further. One note here as well, you can see at the bottom it has some sold listings and not for sale listings. So if you want to just see items that are currently available from a Posher, and Poshmark sometimes, depending on how you enter the search, it may not filter out those sold and not for sale items. You just click down here on availability and click on available. So available items, and then you can see that list doesn't continue down into our sold items. And again, you can filter by all of the same other filters as well, by price, by size, by category, by color, all of those kinds of things. So that's the feed and the shop/search part of navigating the app. The middle button, sell, with the little camera icon, brings up this screen, and this is just obviously, as the name implies, for sellers. So we're going to leave that for today and cover that in part 2 if you are interested in selling on Poshmark. So check our channel for that video, or I'll leave a link down in the description if that video is up already. To the right of the sell tab along the bottom is the news feed. So you can click on the news feed to see all of your notifications. So if you follow anyone and they start a live show, you can see here it says this closet is with their username is live. Tap now to shop whatever they've titled their show. That can be interesting. If there's a specific person who you're following because you like their style or you like the things that they're sourcing, then you can follow whatever they're doing and shop from their live shows. It'll also show you if, like us, you're a seller on the app, people can share your listings for you, which just helps get a little bit more visibility on those items. So it'll give you notifications of that. You can see here as well, if anyone leaves you a comment on your bundle specifically, if you are liking items, they may leave you a comment. So you can find that under comments. You can also filter by offers. If you've sent offers and you're wondering if seller has maybe accepted your offer or made a counter offer, you can see that here. Any orders that you've made, you can see under the orders tab of the newsfeed. Likes, this is going to apply for sellers on the platform, so we won't get into that here. Bundles, this will show you if a seller, maybe you've liked multiple items from a specific seller, they can add those items to your bundle to make it a bundled shipping and offer you a larger discount on the bundle as a whole. So you'll get notifications about that in bundles. And then again, Posh shows shares, follows, all of that kind of stuff. And then to the right of the news tab along that bottom edge, you can see it says at your username. So you can click on that and this will bring up everything that you need if you want to navigate your own Poshmark store or closet, listings that you've put up here. So I'll just go through these quickly if there's any that jump out at me as being relevant to buyers. So your guide to Poshmark and Posh etiquette, good places to start if you have any other questions that for some reason I missed in this video as well. You can feel free to leave them in the comments down below and I will get back to you. Invite friends, earn cash. So there you can see the Poshmark referral codes that I mentioned earlier. If you would like to have your own referral code, maybe you're recommending the app to a friend or family member, that's where you'd get that. You can find specific people if there's someone you're looking for, maybe a Facebook friend or something like that. And then yeah, as a buyer on the platform, you might be interested in my recent views. So this will show you things like maybe you found something that you were interested in, but you forgot to click like or add it to a bundle. And so you're not sure how you're going to find that item again. You can find that here in your my recent views. You can also save searches. So if maybe you want to keep monitoring new listings that come up for like a specific style of, let's say, a Lululemon Swiftly Tech shirt, maybe there's a specific pattern that you want, you can save a search and then you can just really quickly navigate to my saved searches and it'll automatically apply all those same filters for you. So you can do that there. My purchases, so this is once you have made an order, you'll be able to see your past purchases here. And then my payment methods, this is where you want to go to add payment methods before you make an order or make an offer to a seller. Make sure your payment info is up to date because then this happens to us all the time where a buyer will send us an offer and then we click accept and then it notifies both us and the buyer that there was a payment issue because maybe the credit card was expired or deactivated or something like that. So just make sure before you go and send any offers out that you update your payment info and keep that up to date. My seller tools, this is all for sellers, so we're not going to get into that, or my shoppers. Under notifications here, you can enable or disable what notifications you receive from the app, and this is quite nice to do. We do recommend that you do this because not everyone uses Poshmark in the same way, and maybe if you are going to be listing a couple of items, you might be getting like follow notifications, which maybe you don't care about getting all of those pushed to your phone on your lock screen or whatever. So go through and just make sure that the notifications look like things that'll be helpful to you. And then of course you can also go into this screen to log out if you need to log out of the app for whatever reason, get frequently asked questions, more information from Poshmark support, all of that kind of stuff. All right, so that's all about navigating the Poshmark app. So let's talk about liking and what that means as a buyer on Poshmark. If you've used a platform like eBay before, you'll be familiar with the watch this item feature. Liking an item on Poshmark is very similar. It's basically, it notifies the seller that you've liked the item. Sellers will generally interpret a like as I could be persuaded to purchase this item, or maybe I am saving it for later, those kinds of things. It is seen as an intent to purchase or negotiate or an interest in negotiating. So if you want to like an item, maybe you found an item that you're interested in and you want to send the seller an offer or you want to save it for later, you click the little heart on the bottom left corner of that listing and it'll save it to your likes. And again, to a seller, that generally means I could be persuaded to purchase this item if you send me the right offer, or I am interested in this item and I'm going to come back in a few days or a week and I just want to bookmark it so I can make sure I can come back and purchase this item later. So even if you're not intending to purchase whenever you like something specifically, expect that you will receive offers if you like an item. And it's totally fine if you just want to like something and save it for later. You can always message the seller through that comment feature on your bundle as well and just say, hey, I'm just liking this for now. I'll come back to it later, or I'll come back to it on payday, or whatever it is. If you're just interested in an item, or maybe you just want to like it in case the seller lowers the price in the future, you do get notified of that if they lower it by 10% or whatever it is. So maybe you just want to like an item because you like the item, but you don't like the price it's listed at, and maybe you don't think that the seller seller's going to work with you for whatever reason, or you can't agree on price, still totally fine to like the item, save it for later. But do expect that a seller will send you offers on the items that you like. So you don't have to go in and decline. The offers automatically lapse after 24 hours if they're not responded to, but you never know. You might get an offer that you are surprised pleasantly over, and then you can accept it, or you can make a counter offer. So that's all about liking on Poshmark. Oh, and by the way, if you're liking this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up down below. Help us out with the YouTube algorithm. I think it's over here on this side of the video if you're on desktop. Just click that little thumbs up. Gives us a little happiness injection straight to the heart, and it also helps us with the search algorithm as we're trying to grow our YouTube channel. So please consider that, and moving right along. If you do shop through a person's Poshmark closet and you see multiple items that you're interested in, like each of them, and then either you or the Poshmark seller can add all of your liked items to a bundle. And so in adding them to a bundle, that just means that the seller can send you an overall offer on all of those items where you're only paying for shipping once, and that's really nice. And then the seller can send you a bigger discount usually as well. Most sellers are happy to work with you a little more on price if you're buying multiple items from them. This person has liked 3 items from our Poshmark closet. If they would like to, they can add those items to their own bundle, or the seller usually will take the initiative if they see you like multiple items and bundle those items together for you. So to add an item to a bundle, you just click that little bag with a plus symbol at the bottom middle of the listing that you've liked from a closet, and you can do that, and you'll see it'll automatically push it to the top of the screen and put it in that bundle. So you do that for each individual item that you want to add to the bundle, and then you can send the buyer or seller a message depending on which side of that you're on. You can leave that in a comment, and then either the buyer or the seller can send the first offer on that bundle. So then here you can see your offer, and because this person has like 3 items from our closet, I'll offer them a little over 20% off. 20% I'd say is kind of the standard amount off. You can go more or less than that. Keep in mind that if you're a buyer especially and you send a seller an offer that's say 50% off of whatever they have an item listed at, you two are valuing that item very differently, and a seller might be a little put off by you offering 50% off, and they might not be as willing to work with you on the price. So just keep that in mind. Sellers are people too. They're not just usernames. So just be ready for that and kind of understand that 20 to 30% off is kind of that sweet spot where a seller, even if they can't go that low on that item for whatever reason, maybe they have it listed a little low to begin with, they're more likely to be willing to work with you on the price if you send them what would be more of a reasonable first offer, and you never know, they might just accept it. So offer on this, 20% of 63 would be about $14. So I will offer them $15 off, which would be $48, and I'll give them a shipping discount. Quick note on shipping, the default shipping for an item on Poshmark, I'll pop it up on screen here because it does vary whether you're on Poshmark US, Poshmark Canada, Poshmark Australia. So I'll pop up the shipping rates here. The seller can choose to discount the shipping. The buyer cannot offer themselves discounted shipping. Discounting the shipping, that's not the seller giving you a freebie. That means the seller is taking that hit of the difference in price and shipping out of their earnings. So you can see here, because we're on the seller side of this transaction that I'm showing you, the seller shipping discount $3.50. Buyers pay a flat fee of $13.49 Canadian. Sellers have the option to include discounted shipping. So by including discounted shipping, you see here that it will affect our earnings on this bundle. So if I offer $9.99 shipping, that means our pre-tax earnings before any sales tax is $34.90. If I don't offer discounted shipping, $38.40. So it does directly come out of the seller's earnings. So just keep that in mind. It's not something that a seller can just offer if they're feeling nice. It actually does come out of their earnings. So Poshmark sellers will generally not be willing to discount shipping on bundles under a certain amount because it just makes that transaction not worth it for them. For us as Poshmark sellers, when we're selling on Poshmark Canada, I'd say that amount is like under 35-40 Canadian dollars. We're just not willing to discount the shipping because it's too big of a hit out of our earnings. And then on the US closet, that's pretty much anything under $30. We can't really discount the shipping. So then an offer can be submitted. That'll notify the other party that an offer's been made on their bundle, and then they can go in, decline it, accept it, or make a counter offer. Other things to note about bundles is that a seller and a buyer cannot edit a bundle. That means take items out of a bundle or add more items to a bundle if there is an open bundle offer already. So if you make a bundle and then you come back to it later and you go back to that Posher's closet and you want to add more things to your bundle before you make a purchase, the seller may have already bundled those items or seen your bundle and sent you a bundle offer. If there is that open offer, just decline it so you can modify the bundle from there. You can't modify the bundle with an offer open. Another point with bundles is that you cannot bundle multiple items from different Poshmark sellers, and that's just because it's all being combined into a single package when it's shipped to you. And of course, different Poshers are different people, different stores. So of course, you can't go to Target's website, get a couple of things, and then add things from Walmart's website and get it shipped to you together. Can't do it. So same thing on Poshmark. Different people's Poshmark closets are their own Poshmark stores. So you can't bundle the shipping from multiple Poshmark stores. And one last point on bundling. Sometimes Poshmark sellers will add things to your bundle that you have not liked and that you have never seen before. This is what Poshmark calls styling you. So if a Poshmark seller starts styling you, that means they have added something to your bundle without you liking the item first. We've been selling on the app for several years and we have no idea why people do this. We wish Poshmark sellers would stop doing this because it's just a notification that you don't need or want. Yeah, you can generally feel free to ignore these unless it can be helpful, and we have used it a few times where a Poshmark buyer messages us and says, hey, I'm looking for something like this. Do you have anything like that? I see that your closet is quite large. I'm new to Poshmark. I'm not sure about filtering. And so in that instance, we might style something to their bundle and say, is this kind of what you're looking for? And so in that respect, it can be helpful that a seller can specifically put something in your bundle for you to see it. Otherwise, if someone starts styling you out of nowhere, you can generally feel free to ignore that. Some things to know: there is a 30 item limit in a bundle, so a seller cannot sell you a single order in a single bundle with more than 30 items. That's just the way it is currently. So if you do want to buy more than 30 items from a single seller, you are going to have to do that in at least 2 transactions. So just be aware of that if, say, you're buying a lot of stuff from a single seller. Another thing to be aware of, the Poshmark prepaid labels are only valid for up to £5. So if you're ordering things that are big, bulky, heavy things, multiple items, maybe you get a couple pairs of shoes that can really quickly hit that £5 limit. So this seller is going to have to buy an upgraded shipping label for a greater weight, anywhere up to 10 pounds. If you're buying things that are big, heavy, or just multiple items that take them over the £5 limit, the seller may request that you pay a little bit more for those items in the bundle. So just keep in mind that all of that will affect the seller's bottom line and how much they can work with you on price. If the items are particularly heavy, they may have to charge you a little bit more just to make up for the fact that they have to buy upgraded shipping from Poshmark. Something a little bit unusual about Poshmark is that automation is quite prevalent for sellers. If you're curious about automation and why sellers would use automation or bots to do certain aspects of their store management, I will leave a link. You can check out this video, the Poshmark bot that we use and why we use it and why it is so beneficial for sellers. But the big takeaway for buyers, people will generally set their automation tools to send out an offer of a certain amount off of the listing price whenever an item is liked. So if you like an item, that automation tool, if the Poshmark seller is using one, will send you an offer on your likes. And this can be a little bit annoying if you're a buyer. If you're liking multiple items from a single seller, say you like 8 items, and because you're kind of figuring out your bundle, you might get 8 individual offers on those 8 individual items. Please don't be offended. Just know that to run a full-time especially, but even a large part-time Poshmark business, automation is extremely beneficial for the sellers and it saves them a ton of time. So just know if you receive a ton of offers because you like multiple things, that might be what's happening. And again, you can totally feel free to either decline those offers, ignore those offers, or move all of the items into a bundle yourself and send an offer on the bundle to the seller. Even from our closet, buyers will sometimes receive they'll like 3 or 4 things, they get 3 or 4 individual offers and they're like, hey, sorry, I just like 4 things, can you make it a bundle for me? And that's no problem at all. We are happy to do that. And again, making a bundle, we can work with you more on price. So this next section is all about what happens when you find something that you want to purchase. So maybe there was a bundle offer or a single item offer that you received that you want to accept, or maybe you sent an offer to a seller and they've accepted it. Now what? So this is where you want to make sure that you have your payment info up to date, and I did show how to do that in the Poshmark navigation section of this video. Make sure you give Poshmark your updated payment information, because if you send an offer and you haven't updated your payment information, then when the seller goes to accept an offer, it comes up with a payment issue, and then Poshmark notifies you saying, hey, before the sale can be completed, you have to update your payment information. And in that case, the item that you wanted to purchase remains available for sale because the transaction didn't go through. Maybe there's something that you really like that's really unique. If you send an offer and the seller tries to accept that, Poshmark then notifies you that you need to update your payment info, and by the time you do that, that item could have sold to someone else. So make sure you keep your payment info up to date if you're a buyer on Poshmark. Once you have ordered an item, Poshmark will automatically deduct anything that you have as Posh credit before charging your payment method of choice. So say you have $10 in Posh credit because it's your first purchase and you signed up with someone's code and you're on Poshmark US, then when you order an item that is, say, $30, Poshmark will deduct that $10 Posh credit from your total. There's a few different ways to get Posh credit that I'm not going to go through in this video, but if you have any questions about that, feel free to leave them down below and I will do my best to reply in a comment. The long and short of it is Poshmark runs various promotions and you can get Posh credit that way, or you can get it when you first sign up or when you refer people. So as a buyer, you make your purchase, you have made sure that your address is up to date, your payment info is up to date. Basically, that's all you have to do. You just wait for your item. What happens on the seller's side when you purchase an item from them? Poshmark will email them a shipping label that is prepaid. If you're in the US, it's USPS priority. If you're in Canada, it's Canada Post expedited. I'm not sure what it is in Australia or the UK, but that is kind of how it works. Poshmark will send the seller a prepaid shipping label. The seller will then package your item. If you bought a bundle, they'll package everything together so it ships under that one shipping label, drop it off at the post office, and then at some point you receive your package. Poshmark will notify you as the package is first scanned in by the shipping carrier. It'll say this item has been shipped and is now tracking, so you can keep an eye on the item as well. All of the sales that you purchase on Poshmark are tracked. So that's great because then if a package shows as delivered but is missing, as I mentioned earlier in the video, Posh Protect policy will be there to help pay out both the buyer and the seller in that instance where, say, someone has stolen your package or the package has gone missing or anything like that. So one common question buyers might have is how long from when I make my order until I receive my item. And this is going to depend on a number of factors, including what platform you're buying on. So Poshmark US versus Poshmark Canada. In Canada, we don't have as many people and we have a larger geographical area to cover. So our shipping is slower, unfortunately, than say USPS is in the States. In Canada, we have seen, depending on where you are relative to your seller, it can take as little as a couple of days to as long as a few weeks. If you're way up north in Nunavut, or if you're on the opposite side of the country, Canada Post moves at its own pace and it's slow. It can be frustrating, but unfortunately, once the seller has shipped an item, whether on US or Canada or in the UK or in Australia, it's out of the seller's hands and it's into the hands of the shipping carrier. If you are in the US and you're buying on Poshmark US, our experience from selling on Poshmark US is once an item has been received by USPS, it can get there in as little as a day. day, or it can take about as long as a week. Anything over a week in USPS's hands, I'd say, is pretty abnormal, though it could happen if you're in, say, Puerto Rico or Hawaii or Alaska. You're in a really rural area, like different places relative to the seller especially will necessitate different amounts of time. But in general, USPS, once an item starts tracking, it'll take about a week is our experience. Another important thing to note about the timeline is how long sellers have from the time you order until they have to ship. So the standard on Poshmark is sellers should try to ship within 3 business days of an item being ordered. Sellers will often try to keep their ship time well under 3 days. Sometimes sellers won't be able to ship certain days. Sometimes there are holidays and shipping carriers aren't open, right? And the reality is when you order on Poshmark or eBay or from anyone who's a small business, they will do their best to get their package to you as quickly as possible, but you're not ordering from Amazon Prime, right? So it's generally totally reasonable as far as sellers are concerned to not ship within a day. I wouldn't expect most orders to ship within 1 business day. Most will usually try to ship within 2 business days, and it can take a little longer just depending on circumstances. So for context, if you are a Canadian selling on Poshmark US like we are, and I'll put a video up here saying how you can go about doing that if for some reason you're watching this video about how to purchase on Poshmark US. There are also just going to be sometimes delays in shipping. Life happens for small sellers and they don't have warehouse workers that they can rely on to ship when something goes wrong. You can always just send your seller a message if you need an item more quickly. As a seller, I know for sure it's a lot easier for us to sort of set expectations and help accommodate any need for faster shipping if you message us before you place your order. So you can always do that as well. Before you send an offer or before you accept an offer, if there is an urgent need for you to get the item quickly, maybe you have an event that you need a specific item for or something like that, just message your seller, let them know, and most sellers will be happy to work with you on that if they're able to. So other things you need to know when you are buying something on Poshmark, sellers and buyers should have these kinds of fair expectations. Things like items should be described accurately and any issues or flaws with the item should be disclosed both in the photos and in the description where possible. This is really important and it's something that we always try to do in our closet and we always recommend to new sellers in particular. Buyers should be able to look at an item and scroll through all the photos and see any flaws highlighted in the photos, and they should be able to go to the description and see any flaws reflected in the description of the product as well. Sometimes because of the 16 photo limit, depending on the item, it might not be possible to show every single angle of every single flaw, but in general, you should have a good idea if there are flaws before you purchase your item as a buyer on Poshmark, and if an item arrives and it's not in the condition that you were expecting, you can open a case with Poshmark and get a full refund, and Poshmark will provide you with that free prepaid return postage so you can send it back to the seller. Some sellers will include extra things in the package, whether they be thank you notes or little gifts. Sellers are absolutely not obligated to do this. It can enhance the purchasing experience, obviously, but in general, as a buyer on Poshmark, I would say you shouldn't expect to receive anything additional from the item you purchased, but what you should expect is that the item arrives as it was described by the seller. So once the seller has shipped the item to you and it makes its way through the postal service and arrives at your home, you have 3 days to accept that item or to open up a case if anything's wrong with that item. So that means keep an eye on your orders. Once you see something shows as delivered, make sure you check it over thoroughly for flaws and just make sure it is as it was described. An important thing to note is you cannot return things for fit. So that's why it's really important on Poshmark to make sure that you're buying things that are in the right size. And if you have questions about whether an item is going to fit, it's a good idea to resolve those questions before you make your purchase, because once you receive an item, fit is not a valid reason to make a return on Poshmark. Poshmark will not cover that under their Posh Protect policy. And so one way that you can make sure that an item will fit as a buyer on Poshmark is to request measurements from a seller, and most sellers are more than happy to do this. For instance, on all of our listings in our Poshmark closet, both on US and Canada and on eBay, you can find the most common measurements that are requested for any item. So So for pants, that's the rise, the inseam, the waist across, the leg opening, those things. For tops or dresses, it's armpit to armpit across the chest. It's the back of collar to bottom of hem, or the full length of the item. If it's something like a dress, the hip measurement, so if it flares out and then back in, if it's a bodycon dress, things like that. It's totally reasonable to request those measurements, and you want to make sure you do to make sure that the item will fit before you make your order. So when you accept an order, that's telling Poshmark and the seller that it arrived and is in the same condition as it was in the product's description when the seller made the listing. And when you accept the item, you can also choose to leave a rating for the Poshmark seller. We definitely encourage you to do this. If an item isn't up to the quality that you would expect based on the seller's listing, then you can reflect that in a rating. Other Poshers can see the Poshmark seller's average rating, so it is an important part. Leaving feedback is really important for a marketplace like Poshmark, like eBay. So please do leave feedback for your seller. I would also say try to keep it constructive. Early on in our selling days, we got some very fair constructive feedback that there was pet hair, because we do have cats, on some of the items. So we completely changed all of our processes to make sure that that never happens. And ever since, we've had no issues with that. So sometimes feedback can be really important and really helpful for a seller to grow their business more. Keep in mind, leave feedback that is fair to the seller, right? Like, don't leave a 1-star rating for a seller because you realized after that the floral pattern doesn't look good on you. That's not fair to the seller then, if you leave them a negative feedback because your issue is with how the item looks on you. Just like negative feedback can help a seller develop their business further, so there are fewer issues in the future. Positive feedback is also great, and sellers really appreciate receiving it. So if your order is as it was described, please do consider leaving 5 stars for your seller. If you leave anything less than 5 stars, that tells the seller that something wasn't right with your purchasing experience, and it does imply that the seller could have done something to make that better. So please do keep that in mind. Let's say you made a purchase, but something isn't right with the order. Maybe the seller missed a flaw and didn't disclose it. Whatever the issue is, you can then open up a case with Poshmark. So when you do open up a case, it'll let the seller know the earnings that the seller would have received will stay locked until the case is resolved, and an adjudicator from Poshmark support will come and take a look at whatever the issue might be. They may request additional photos of the item from you as the purchaser of the item. So let's say there's a hole that the seller missed, then you would just have to submit a photo of that hole, say this wasn't disclosed in the original listing, and as long as you're right about that, then Poshmark would say, okay, here is a return shipping label, send it back to the seller, and we will return the money that you paid back to you. A quick note about returns. Poshmark does not currently, at the time of filming this, nor have they since we started selling several years ago, they do not support partial refunds. So on eBay, a seller has the option to offer a partial refund. That is not the case on Poshmark. Either accept your items as they came and the seller gets their full earnings, or you don't accept your items because something is wrong with them and you have to ship those items back to the seller and get a full refund. This is problematic in the case of bundles. If you buy a bundle on Poshmark of, say, 3 items, if only 1 item is wrong, unfortunately, that means that you are going to have to return all 3 items back to your seller and get a full refund. And then in that case, if you would like to repurchase just the 2 items, then you can redo that transaction with the seller. Honestly, if there's a case where the seller did legitimately miss something or failed to disclose something, the seller is usually happy to work with you to redo that transaction. It is just a pain in the butt because you have to ship the items back to the seller, so then you can repurchase and they can ship them back to you. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is with Poshmark, but in exchange for that, you do get the rest of Posh Protect, which is really beneficial. And honestly, I don't totally know how else they would do that. We won't get into partial refunds and why Poshmark should offer them, because they should. But at the end of the day, just know that about bundles. If something does go wrong, before you open a case, you do kind of have to consider, if you have multiple items and only 1 item is incorrect or slightly wrong, it might just not be worth opening that case and returning everything, because neither Poshmark support nor the seller can offer a partial refund. It's all or nothing. And then one last quick note, I just want to talk really quickly about Posh Authenticate, how that works and what it is. So Poshmark offers authentication on any items that you purchase for more than 500 US dollars or 700 Canadian dollars. That is for a single item. So let's say you buy a Valentino purse. Maybe it retailed for 1,600 US dollars. Maybe you buy one on Poshmark for $1,000 US or Canadian. Either way, you're over the dollar limits of 500 and 700 respectively. So Posh Authenticate basically means in the case of a US sale, it's free shipping automatically to Poshmark headquarters, and then it goes from Poshmark headquarters to you. In the event that you buy over 700 Canadian dollars on Poshmark Canada for a single item, that is automatically $3.99 shipping. The seller cannot discount it because that shipping then has to go to the US, to Poshmark headquarters, before it can come up to you. And so when it goes to Poshmark headquarters, Poshmark's authentication team will take a look at the item, just make sure that it isn't obviously fake, and then ship it to you. I will say authentication of luxury goods, the longer we've been reselling, the more skepticism I think we've come to have with some authentication. Some items are really easy to determine are fake, but you can never really definitively prove that an item is real unless you're buying it directly from the original retailer. In general, if you think an item that you receive is inauthentic, open a case for that. Absolutely open a case for that. Explain in the case why you think the item is inauthentic. And just know that most sellers, I can't speak for all sellers, but I know most sellers are doing their best to only sell authentic items. We absolutely do not list anything that we think is inauthentic. And in the case where we're not confident in an item's authenticity, we will submit photos of that item for a third party to authenticate. And that's what we would recommend for all sellers to do. It's just not worth it to a seller to have that kind of black mark against them of like trying to sell fakes. That all being said, keep in mind as a buyer, sometimes mistakes do happen. And if you think you've been sold in an authentic item, open the case, explain why you think it's inauthentic. And in most cases, the seller will accept the item as a return. A lot of people who sell on Poshmark, like us, don't just sell their own clothes or accessories. We go to thrift stores, we go to consignment stores, we have consignment clients. So we get items from a bunch of different places. And again, we only sell things that we are quite sure are authentic, but you can never be 100% sure when you didn't get the item from a retail store yourself. So just bear that in mind. And even professional authenticators do get things wrong. There are lots of instances of this all over the resale market, whether it's on Poshmark, Vestaire, the Real, like even the experts can make mistakes. So be understanding if on the off chance that does happen to you. I will say Posh Authenticate is a great way to have some reassurance in this respect, right? Because you're getting a neutral third party to look at the item before it gets passed on to you from the seller. That will also impact your ship time if you are buying an item over 500 USD or 700 CAD, because again, it has to go from the seller to Poshmark headquarters to you. Just it might take a little longer to receive your item, but there's nothing the seller can do about that. But on the other hand, you get the free authentication included. So yeah, some final kind of housekeeping and miscellaneous points for Poshmark buyers. First is on live shows. So in a live show, you can buy multiple items in a bundle from the same seller. However, if you're going to do that, the most common way that sellers will deal with this is they will, after the Posh show, they will create a single listing for all of the items that you purchased, reflecting the purchase price of all of those items totaled. And then they'll send you an offer for that you can accept, and then they'll cancel your individual orders from the Posh show. So your seller should be communicating with you about that if you are buying during Posh shows. Canceling orders. Say you make a purchase and then you realize for whatever reason you want to cancel it. You can cancel it yourself as a buyer within 3 hours if you purchased an item for full price without doing any offers. If you sent a seller an offer and the seller accepted that offer, you don't have the ability to cancel that during the first 3-hour window like you would if it was a full price sale. So in that case, if you want to cancel the order, you would have to message your seller and say, hey, I just realized I need to cancel this order. Can you please cancel it for me? Most sellers are happy to work with you on that. Just keep in mind that the seller cannot cancel an order once they've shipped it. So offers are binding on Poshmark and purchases are binding. So if you purchase something and before you realize you need to cancel it, the seller ships it, you are kind of out of luck as a buyer. You're obligated to receive that item. Bear that in mind. Be sure you do want to purchase an item before you send out an offer that the seller could accept. I also want to give you a couple of tips on how you can determine whether a seller is trustworthy or not. No one wants to make an order for an item from a seller who is no longer active on the app and who isn't going to ship your item, or you probably don't want to order from a seller who consistently takes a really long time to ship or has a lot of really bad reviews, right? So one way that you can kind of do some vetting of a seller before you make a purchase is, I'll show you on screen here. You can navigate to their closet, and then at the very top of the closet, under their name, you can click the About button. I'm just showing you our Canadian closet. You can see here we're a Posh Ambassador 2, so there are Posh Ambassadors and there's Posh Ambassador 2. This is just basically a little badge and designation that Poshmark gives its sellers who have lots of experience selling on the app, have gotten a certain amount of positive feedback, and who have kept their ship time under 3 days, and just a bunch of things like that. So that's a good first sign. If you were only going to look for one thing, and you want to make sure you're buying from an experienced seller, look for a Posh Ambassador 2 icon. Posh Ambassadors 1, honestly, like it's not super difficult to move from Posh Ambassador 1 to Posh Ambassador 2. So I would be looking for those Posh Ambassador 2s, that little gold icon there. You can see how long they've been a Posher. This just tells you when they joined the app and not when they started selling. It will tell you their average ship time as well. So again, this is important if you need an item quickly. If you see an average ship time over 3 days, know that that is abnormal for Poshmark, although not unheard of, because again, it depends. Maybe someone's in a rural area and they can't ship frequently, right? But if you need an item quickly, that's something to pay attention to. It also tells you when they were last active on the app. So this is important if you're assessing whether or not someone is still active and monitoring their closet and actually will ship the item to you. You can see when they were last online. If it says anything longer than a week ago, you maybe be careful about buying from that seller, because they might just not be checking the app that frequently or moving a lot of inventory, so they might not be shipping frequently. You can see their other social media stuff if you want to follow them elsewhere. Then you can also see how many love notes they've given or received. So you can see we have well over 100 plus love notes, all of those kinds of things. So my final tips for Poshmark buyers are to send offers to sellers. No one who is an experienced seller on Poshmark expects to sell an item for whatever they have it listed for. Sellers build that added margin into their listing price to make sure that they can still make a profit on an item while sending like 20% off offers in almost all cases. And I would say 20% off is kind of like that sweet spot where you're making a discount on whatever the listing price is, but the seller is still likely to accept. So if you're wondering what should I offer, just keep in mind again, if you offer way too low, odds are you and the seller are just valuing the item very differently, and you might put the seller off of making a nicer offer if you come in with like a 60% off of their list price, right? So just bear in mind that sellers are small businesses and we're doing our best to make a living, or a part-time, full-time, side hustle, whatever it is. If you are sending 60, 70, 80% off offers, the seller might just decline those, depending on what kind of margin they have built into their listings, how much the item's listed for, whether you're buying multiple items. So just bear that in mind. Sellers are people too. Lastly, if you're curious about some of the other Poshmark faux pas that you might want to avoid, I will leave a link to a video we did on that topic up in this corner here. And then, yeah, I think that's it. Go forth, buy all of the things for cheaper than retail, and never shop retail again, because you deserve it. If you found this video helpful, please consider hitting like, hitting subscribe down below. It does a lot to help us with the algorithm, and we really appreciate it. We do post content on this channel, usually geared towards sellers of used clothes and accessories, but every now and then we make videos for buyers as well. And once you're comfortable buying on the app, it's really easy. Even if you're not interested in turning this into a business, you can use the Poshmark app to sell your old stuff for cash. So if you have a closet that needs clearing out, selling on Poshmark is a great way to go. If you are are interested in getting started with selling on Poshmark, do check back soon. The next video on this channel should be part 2 of this series, which is geared towards helping sellers get started on Poshmark. I will see you in the next video, and yeah, go forth, buy and sell used clothes, never shop retail again, and do the thing. Bye.